5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
Welcome, and you're listening to GHT Overland.
Hey guys, thanks for listening. This episode is, I guess, what you'd refer to as our pre-launch party. Oh, we should have brought glasses to clink. That would have been kind of cool.
Or a little party blower.
Party blower. Today, we're going to provide you an overview of who we are and what GHT Overland is. So stay tuned in for a review of the epic adventures you're invited to join in on, along with some of the subjects we'll be covering.
Oh, this is going to be exciting. Let's get going on this.
This is episode 100. That was episode
1.
What a dynamic difference is what I'm thinking. What are you thinking?
Yep. I think I've come a long way.
Well, I think everything has come a long way, just like anything when you're starting off new and unpracticed. It may sound very new and unpracticed. And so what we've done, hopefully, is really cool, but very humbling at the same time. Going back, looking at all the different episodes we've done, all the different people that we've talked to, the knowledge that we've gained, and hopefully that you've gained as well in listening to the episodes, and the amount of variation from the people that we've talked to and their levels of experience is
amazing.
So what we're going to do is we're going to go through, I don't even know if we would call them highlights. As I went through and looked at the episodes that we've done and the people that we've talked to, just stories that happen to just pop in my mind that, one, I think are really educational, two, funny or entertaining, or three, enlightening. Is that different than educational?
Yes.
Eye-opening?
Yes.
Mind-opening?
Yep.
I don't think there's anything that's mind-bending.
No.
But just a plethora of knowledge and education that we hope you enjoy in this episode, number 100.
So reviewing and looking back on each episode, I find that they came with their own story, but they all accomplished the same goal. And to me, that's freedom.
That's mind-bending.
That's what I'm saying.
But you're absolutely right. So, but the interesting thing is they all had their own way of doing things. They all did it for arguably similar reasons. And as I put these together, I found it fascinating how many similarities there were from each episode and each person from their completely different viewpoint.
And backgrounds.
Yeah, and backgrounds, absolutely right. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all these little bits and pieces as I look through the different episodes that we've done, and we're going to play these individually. They're completely and not like any kind of an order, because unfortunately, I am sorry, don't have the hours I would love to spend to put them in like a, not chronological, but some sort of order like we normally do the interviews and the questions that we ask. So it might seem a little mishmash, and if it does, that's because it is.
We made it that way.
But we hope you enjoy this kind of overview and celebration of 100 episodes with so many people, so many amazing individuals. You know what was really entertaining?
What?
Or not entertaining, but interesting?
What's that?
Some of the best audio recording were the people that were the furthest away. How does that work?
That's mind-bending.
So let's get into this. First one we're going to do is with Misha, which was our first. Well, so if that was our first episode that we kind of called our pre-episode, this would be our first interview episode with Misha. So let's get into that, Lisa. What do you say?
Let's do this.
Just before we crossed, they weighed us and they found out that we were over our maximum weight by a couple 100 pounds, which was it was a detail on paper because the truck was incorrectly registered. It was registered as a 12-ton truck when it was actually a 16-ton truck. But we were overweight. We were about 13 tons, so that was a big problem. So I gathered it was a big problem, but it was kind of difficult because we didn't speak a word of each other's language. And at the end of the night, this border crossing guard came up to us and he said, "It's all good, no problem, you may cross into country." I was really happy. But then he said, "Yes, but car cannot cross."
Oh.
So I was a bit less happy. So I said, "Okay, so what's the problem?" So he said, "Well, yeah, you must get permission from Minister from Infrastructure." And that just kind of really pissed me off, made me angry. So I just acted surprised and said, "Oh, but you mean I have to call Dimitri? Dimitri is a good friend of mine." I whipped out my phone and said, "I'll call Dimitri now." But remember, it was 4 a.m. So he got really excited. He said, stop, not call Dimitri. He didn't know Dimitri. I just made up the name Dimitri. Yeah. But he thought I was going to call the Minister of Infrastructure and at 4 a.m. So he said, stop, no call. You go. So we crossed the country.
So there you go. Border crossings, great storytelling, language barrier issues. Do you remember that first interview?
I do.
Do you remember what the first thing is that yours truly did incorrectly on number one?
No. I don't find you doing anything incorrect.
Right. We kind of forgot to hit the record button.
Oh.
Remember?
You.
Well, yeah, me. And Misha was totally cool. He just laughed it off. All right, I guess that was a good trial run. We'll start over. We weren't that far, maybe 10 minutes into the conversation, and I looked at the...
We've learned a lot.
Yeah. Well, we did that with I did that with Jack and Gemma from Australia as well, but we'll get to them a little bit later. So next up, we're going to talk a little bit about laundry on the road, and this one is one of my favorite simple ways of getting laundry done, and again, from our friend Misha.
I think being agitated in a bucket on top of a four-wheel drive vehicle, I'd get washed too.
How do you manage laundry on the road? Did you guys have a washer dryer on board, or what was your setup?
Yeah, it was fun. We had a nifty little setup, and it was really simple. We had a bucket with a lid on it, and you put in your laundry and some detergent, and you close the lid, and you start driving. And at the end of the day, it's clean. You rinse it out, you hang it up, and you're good to go.
And is that something that you came up with, or was that a product that you were able to purchase?
It's one of the tips we got from friends and from other travelers that showed this. I think I found it online, actually, on YouTube somewhere. And it was just a great idea, and it's so simple. It'll never break down. It doesn't take any power, and it's really efficient.
All right, so guess who's next?
Richard and Ashley from Desk to Glory.
It was super cool to run into them at the Northwest Overland Rally, the first one we went to. Was it like 2 years ago?
Time flies.
And again, not necessarily in the order that the episodes were released, but let's go over some really good information on what kind of gear and what thoughts might go into your clothing and gear selection.
We didn't really bring a lot of outdoor gear because we didn't really think it was going to be cold, which is...
Well, in Mexico, Central America. We were...
Yeah, in Mexico and Central America. Sorry, it's for the first half of the trip, I guess, but... that was an oversight because you get up at really high elevations in Mexico and Guatemala.
It's pretty cold, right?
I mean, we didn't have like an Arc'teryx jacket or like warm sleeping bags or anything. So when we went back home for the year, we were like, okay, we're going to Patagonia. Like this, we need a jacket.
Yeah.
We need layers.
Yeah.
We got to be serious about this.
So that worked out well to go home halfway through and reevaluate the situation.
Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
smart.
Yeah, so we were able to like upgrade all our trekking gear. Same thing, we realized like, our trekking backpacks are too small for the way we want to travel. Because that was the main thing when we got down to South America, was to hike and trek as much as possible. I think we were hiking for a total of 30 days out of the 12 months we were there. So
okay.
Yeah, we hiked a lot.
we hiked a lot. And so it was like, okay, when we came home, get some backpacks, get some sleeping bags, and some decent outerwear.
And we knew the weather was going to be a little bit more volatile down there anyway.
Sure.
So
Then the opposite of what to bring and what to leave behind.
Marco from the Holland Africa tour gave some of the best thoughts, I thought, that leave you grounded in what is important.
What is that one thing you always value the most when you go on a tour?
You leave everything behind. I would say all the hassle in your normal life, you leave that behind, because in Africa things are so different, and we don't have internet in the cars. Well, sometimes we do, if it's in small villages. But there is no phone ringing. You are alone by yourself and your other crew. We have a crew of about, we go with 14 people. And, you connect with people, and sometimes it's very good, and sometimes it's even better. So you talk about the things in life, and you see things, and you met people, and that's great. Sometimes I can remember I was in Sudan, and we met a little boy, and we gave him a football or a soccer ball, and he didn't know what to do with it. You can't imagine what kind of impact it has on you.
Yeah.
Well, and we have also some goods, and then we gave them shoes and things like that, and clothing, and that gives a special bond with these people. And many times we are invited to drink tea with them, and that's very nice.
Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's better.
Love that.
Now, off to Australia with Jack and Gemma.
A super fun couple as they were just getting started on a 1-year overlanding trip around Australia. Let's talk about food. So I know the kitchen is a great area for myself because I like food. Mm-hmm. So what does your average meal setup look like?
So we really enjoy cooking. So every night or every day we're making our own food. So we have a 2-burner gas stove, which we pull out. Jack makes his coffees in the morning. And then we've also been making our omelettes as well. And then we also have recently just bought a barbecue, which doubles as an oven. So this is,
It's given us the ability we can now cook any meal as we would at home. We have the cooktop and we have the oven. So it's opened up a lot of options for us.
Yeah, and being on the road for a year, we figure we better invest in our health, really.
And is that a brand of barbecue, a barbecue?
Yeah.
So it's a brand of barbecue. It doubles as an oven, so you most of the time cook with the lid shut, and it has a temperature gauge on it, so we can set it at 180 and cook all our meals. We had salmon for dinner in there last night, which was delicious.
We also had cannelloni, which I didn't think we would be able to have this year of travelling. It's sort of like a luxury of being at home with a big oven.
Gemma's favourite meal.
But yeah, they're really great. They come in 3 different sizes. So we have the baby barbecue, which is just perfect for us. We definitely wouldn't need a bigger size.
Yeah, it's nice and compact, and obviously we had a space issue in the car. We've got quite a bit in here already, so we went for the smaller size, which, I wouldn't have gone any bigger. I think it's perfect.
Yeah.
And then we also have just a small cast iron camp oven that we chuck straight on the coals when we're having a fire. And recently we did we've been picking some wild blackberries off the side of the road, and we had a blackberry damper in it the other night, which was just delicious. The damper just consists of flour and water, so it's quite a basic meal, but it was beautiful to add the blackberries into it that we got locally and wild free. And then we went into the shops the other day, and they were selling about 200 grams of these blackberries for $5. we probably picked about
Yeah.
3 kilos worth, I think.
Yeah, so it definitely tastes better when it's free.
Yeah, it was great.
Blackberry damper?
You know, I don't remember what a damper is, but those blackberries sound refreshing.
Let's go from Jack and Gemma in Australia to Jack and Christina in Portugal.
Talking about probably the number one important item 90% of overlanders seem to agree with. And just as a reminder, Jack and Gemma are of See You Around, so if you want to look them up on social media, and Jack and Christina are of JK Overland.
Okay, well, for me, I think for both of us, that's a bit sentimental value, but that is our cafetiere or coffee.
Definitely.
It's like a little cafetiere, so it's an espresso mini machine. We wouldn't go without our morning coffee at all.
We wouldn't get very far.
No, we wouldn't get very far. Go wake up. Chris, I mean,
Definitely.
people here, I've never experienced so much kindness and love from, absolute complete strangers on, like, just simple gestures. For example, people give us kiwis, homemade jams, homemade ciders.
So many gifts.
And so many gifts. It's not about the gift, but it's just how people are happy that you're here, and they sort of have this thing of giving you something. And I just love that. It feels, I don't know, strangely it feels home. You don't feel like you're alien or something like that.
On a little more serious note, we thought KP and Taylor of Running from Monday gave some solid advice on why they chose to ditch the cubicles of life for overlanding adventure.
To us, it's not about the trip. It's about changing our lives to be, because our real reason is just people would ask us to do something and we didn't have time. We never had time to do stuff and we were constantly busy. And
you're in the constant cycle of I'm working so I can have more time, but then you're working more because you need to do that in order to have more time, and it's just that perpetual cycle where you never get out of it. You never end up having more time. So
we wanted something that reflected more just a change in the way we were looking at the world and the way we wanted to approach our lives than something trip specific.
Yeah,
because to us, like I said, it's not about what we're doing so much as just making that major shift in our way of thinking to approach our lives.
I would say one of the most epic stories of all previous episodes.
Well, there was that story from Lee and Steph of Grizzly and Bear.
Ooh, yeah, when they got arrested.
Huh.
Well, let's go to the Bolivia Salt Flats to learn a valuable lesson from David and Raquel of Lost for Days.
And we weren't too concerned at first because we assumed we're going to get out of this. It's going to be fine. The next day we tried to get out, and we've tried everything. We've brought cactus from the nearby island. We've stuck rocks under the car. We've done the high lift, packed salt in the mud, and nothing's working. And we start getting concerned that we might not be able to get out. And we have enough food and water for maybe 3 days. But there's no cell service or anything. So
nobody's driving by. Yeah.
We decide to walk in the direction of which we saw lights the night before. And we assume that it's about a 5-mile walk. But it's hard to tell because our GPS doesn't have any nearby islands on the map. Neither do the paper maps. And everything has a mirage effect because it's just white for miles. And so we start walking and walking and walking, and it's definitely been more than 5 miles. And it's now late in the afternoon, and we're not sure if we're going to make it to the island. And that, I think, was the worst part for me because I was thinking, okay, what if, because we're getting low on water, what if we have to sleep outside tonight? It gets really cold at night.
We're like looking for caves to like, maybe we can call this home for the night.
I remember when they were telling that story, and we were both sitting right where we're sitting right now on the edge of our seats with wide, buggy eyes, wondering how they managed to get their way out and what eventually happened. And you can learn that story by going back and listening to that episode.
Let's circle back to a little more serious insight on the challenges of a long-term overland trip. Thaisa and Ernesto of Overland the Americas lay it out perfectly.
I mean, we have been incredibly lucky with our experience on the road in terms of like safety or border crossings, encounters. We follow a set of basic common sense rules, I think. But I think for both of us, the challenges that we faced on the road had to do a lot more with our families and friends
back home
that go through really difficult situations and we're not there to be with them. It's very personal, you know, and it's not only us. I think that it happens to a lot of travelers, like being away for so long, 2.5 years. There are a lot of things that happen, and I think that when you have that connection with your friends and family, and you know that you cannot be there for them, it's a struggle.
And we've also been super lucky because we were able to visit Ernesto's family in Venezuela along the way during the trip, so that was really special. And then I had some really wonderful support from my family financially to fly back for a few events at home. So again, that part is definitely the most challenging, not being there for your family and friends. But like I said, we've been lucky to have that still some, connection.
Let's talk about planning.
Oh boy.
Hey, it's my favorite subject.
Maybe, but maybe we also need to listen to Ray Highland on his advice on planning.
You know, he gave some pretty solid advice, and I must admit, some of my best adventures were loading up my truck in my early 20s, jumping in, starting the engine, opening the map, deciding where I was going to go after I was all loaded up. Did you know I ever did that?
No.
We learned it together right here.
Then we followed it up with another favorite story, because Ray is the perfect storyteller on navigating a border crossing.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you plan too hard, everything just gets a little monotonous. I mean, and I recognize a lot of people like to have a lot of planning, but on our big London to Singapore trip, we honestly had no idea if we were going to make it. We didn't know if the truck was going to blow up or catch fire halfway through the trip. And our backup plan was, take the license plates off, light it on fire, and buy a bus ticket. And so and as we like to say, it's not really an adventure if you know you're going to make it.
Definitely the process you take, isn't it? Border crossings, what tips do you have in preparing for them?
Border crossings will be tedious. And confusing, and they're purposely set up to be tedious and confusing. And I think you just need to go into them with a sense of humor, and just go with the flow at the border. Don't expect it to go the way you think it should go. Don't look for any sense of efficiencies. Don't expect people to be polite. Don't expect anything to make sense. And just kind of run with it, and and also give into local culture a little bit. I mean, there are, there's a huge subset of the overland community who says, I will never ever make a bribe at any time on any trip, which is awesome. And if those people want to spend 10 days sitting at the border somewhere, more power to them. But at the same time, I mean, I've been in situations where it's like, okay, this is really frustrating. There's 10 pages of paperwork. I don't speak the local language, so I can't figure it out. There's a dude sitting here near the border, and he's like, for 100 pesos or whatever it's going to be, I can sort out everything for you. And I'm like, okay, here you go. For the equivalent of $20, and I'm through the border in an hour. And I see people who've been camping there, and they go back into town to buy provisions. I'm like, yeah, we'll take the easy way out, thank you. So I think, but at the same time, I mean, it's not like you're just throwing money around when you're going through a border. You just need to be patient. You need to understand what the process is, and just recognize that sometimes you're going to need a little bit of help, and sometimes there's an expectation for a little bit of, as some countries call it, a little bit of tea money. Why don't you buy me a cup of tea and I'll see if I can make this work a little faster for you, sir. So I'm not saying that you should do it one way or the other, and we've kind of gone with both approaches. I think, just when you go through a border, go in with an open mind and a relaxed attitude, and don't be too fixed or rigid in your thinking. Just kind of go, all right, let's just take a look at this and see. We'll do what we need to do to get through this as painlessly as possible.
Any specific border crossings that stand out to you?
The crossing from Turkey into Iran was interesting because we were approaching the border coming out of Dogbayzit in northeastern Iran, in Turkey, heading towards the border with Iran, and we ran into a lineup of trucks that were sitting waiting for the border to open, and the lineup of trucks was maybe 4 or 5 miles long.
Oh wow!
There were literally thousands of trucks. And so we were like, well, I guess this is a lineup for the border. And we kind of pulled in, and a couple of truck drivers saw us, and they waved us forward. They said, no, you guys can go up ahead. And so, but the whole road was blocked with trucks. And so we ended up driving over the concrete onto the grassy meridian in the center of the highway. And we drove up the grass for like 5 miles past all these trucks. And we had to drive around obstacles. At one point, we clipped a truck, and the driver was really gracious. He just kind of shook his head and laughed at us and waved us on. And when we got up to the border, we found a local fixer, and he took us through this process that we never ever would have figured out on our own. And to the point where, like, just to get the 20 different people who needed to sign and stamp our various forms. Not speaking Farsi, I mean, I would never have figured out how to, or Persian, how to get this done. And at points, like, I was following this guy through the kitchens in the restaurant to get the backdoor access to the room of a particular person that needed to stamp a form. You know what I mean? And there was people camped out in front of his office waiting for him, like, dozens of people deep. And he was like in his office having lunch, and like we went through the kitchens and then into the back alley, and then like knocked on his window, you know what I mean, to kind of get stuff done.
Oh, that's great.
And so it's just that whole process of getting through the border was something I never would have been able to make up. Even it was pretty crazy. And I came back to the car, and I said to my wife and my kids, I said, we're so glad we found this fixer guy, because there's absolutely no way we would have been able to figure out this process on our own.
Yeah, you might have been camped there for 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, and then I was explaining the process to the rest of the family, and they were just killing themselves laughing. They're like, "And they went where?" So yeah.
A little backwards, I know, but another story that sticks out from Mark and Jolie of The Way Overland on getting a car ready before shipping overseas.
Then a little on the name of their trip carrier.
We had the Tetris theme song playing and managed to squeeze everything into the back of the car. You could not move in here.
No, even to the extent where some of them were, like my long surfboard was protruding into the front. So Jolie couldn't really sit in the front of the car properly. But yeah, we managed to squeeze everything from the outside into the back of the car. Thankfully, there's a lot of space in these cars. And then we just took belongings with us that were really important, like our computers, cameras, and hard drives and the like.
Okay.
So your troop carrier becomes a third party in your group here. Have you given it a name?
Yeah, it's a bit of a silly name. It's kind of like Snoop Dogg, but Troop Dog.
That's awesome. That's great.
Embarrassing.
Everybody has a name for their... I'd say, well, probably 90% of people have got a name for their vehicle.
Yeah.
And they're always really fun to learn what those are.
Yeah.
Snoop Dogg.
No, they said Troop Dog.
Troop Dog.
So imagine Tetris theme song playing in the background, and somehow Snoop Dogg is going to be involved. Can Snoop Dogg play the... Anyway, okay. Another epic story from Aaron and Emily of the Two Dusty Travelers, describing, Lisa, a place we must absolutely, no exceptions, go see.
We can talk about Africa all day long. There's a specific place in northern Tanzania that we fell in love with. It's called the Ngorongoro Crater. That's Ngorongoro crater. Yes, Swahili is a very interesting language.
It's supposedly named for the sound the cowbells make, like ngorong gorong gorong gorong, supposedly.
The ringing of the cowbells, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a extinct volcanic caldera that has sunk down, and it's extremely lush. It's got every single African animal you can imagine.
Actually,
there.
it doesn't have giraffes because they can't walk down.
It doesn't have giraffes. That's true, because they can't make it down the hillside. But one of the amazing things about this is it's an elephant graveyard. So all the really old, gigantic elephants from all around the Serengeti and all that, they come here at the end of their days because there's water down there. There's marshes, and the reeds and stuff are softer on their teeth. And so you drive through this crater and you just see these elephants that are like, 2 times bigger than your safari truck. And it's just,
it's gorgeous.
You turn your head the other way and you see lions and cheetahs. You turn your head the other way, zebras and wildebeest everywhere. And it's just like, it's
nuts. It's supposedly the highest concentration of predators, I think, in all of Africa, because it's this enclosed area and there's so much prey. We saw a lion take down a buffalo like right in front of our vehicle. Yeah. It was nuts. We were like, is this happening?
And
so you were protected, right? Like you didn't get added to the food chain?
We were in the car.
They're here.
Oh no.
No, we're in a gigantic, it's an old 70 series Land Cruiser that's been modified for safari. So you don't get out of it.
Although it is, with the place where we always camp, you can stay in a fancy lodge, but we love to camp when we're on safari because the animals will walk through your site, which is great when they're herbivores. So in the campsite on the edge of this crater, they have this giant water cistern like for the camp, but the elephants know it's there. And so they walk up the hillside and drink from it in the evenings, and it's just wild.
It's otherworldly. It's amazing. And that's what I was going to say is the Ngorongoro craters, it has its own microclimate because it's up at around 4,500, 5,000 feet. And it's a fully enclosed caldera. So you get the clouds breaking over the crater rim and like falling into the crater. The campsite where we stay is right on the rim. So you see into the crater, you see the sunrise.
It's gorgeous.
On the crater, you have, zebras and wildebeest and stuff walking through your campsite. It's amazing.
Wow.
That would be utterly mind-blowing.
Sounds amazing.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. It's our favorite place
We're
in the
big
world.
Africa ambassadors because I think so many Americans are afraid of it. And we've never had a bad experience in Africa, I guess, aside from like having that crappy car, but that was as much our fault as...
Yeah. But it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Sticking with places we must go see.
This is another absolute favorite that came together with some background additions that I personally have listened to and dreamt about more times than I can count.
Thank you, Julie and Steve of Venturesome Overland. We've got to cross paths again.
Hopefully in the Kalahari.
I'll bring the flower.
Oh, that flower story they had. So many awesome stories.
I know.
With everyone.
It's speechless. I'm excited.
Very, very cool.
I
think our favorite place, probably hands down, is the Central Kalahari Game Reserve. We love it in there. It's absolutely beautiful, and sometimes it's like absolutely sublime. So the last time we were there, we were sitting out in the dark around the fire, and there was a lightning storm that was coming through, and the sky was just pink with lightning. So we would hear this, like, there was this flash of lightning, and then we would hear this big crash of thunder, and then immediately when the thunder died down, this lion roared, like right by the campsite. And it was just amazing.
Here is a couple that we simply lost track of time talking with.
There's definitely been a few of those, but these two are very wise, very in tune, and very free.
Courtney and Trevor throw down some perspective worth listening to daily. Here is Courtney and Trevor of Wazamu Life.
What is it about travel that brings us such peace?
That is a really beautiful and deep, complex question. I think everybody can relate to the fact that when you're out of your normal element of home and work, you're able to dial down a lot. So I think everyone can relate to when you have like new perspective and a new surrounding, it sort of changes your mentality a little bit. And I think traveling, especially for me personally, has always been a way to look outside of myself a little bit. Like it sort of forces you to not be so selfish because you are experiencing things that are new and different. And so your brain is sort of concentrating more on that than yourself. And so I think it allows us to take a break from the self-absorption and the, just everything that you think you have to get done in a day or in a week or deadlines and everything. And so it's because usually when you're traveling, you're on vacation, you're on a break, or sometimes it is for work. But again, I think that new surrounding and that new perspective is what causes us to just sort of calm down a little bit in our minds and change our normal way of thinking. And so it gives our brains a break from the normal and it switches it up, which is just gives us a little bit more peace. I think that's how it is for me.
We were always stressed at home and we weren't nearly as stressed on the road. And it seems like even though we have everything at our fingertips at home, we have our friends at a certain place, we have, we can go to dinner, we can go to a brewery, we can go, the gym, everything's set up and laid out for us. It ends up overwhelming me. And so like I almost fabricated all these things that I had to do and had to have done constantly, even though they weren't real deadlines by any means. Whereas, when you're on the road, you're limited by how fast you can go, where you are, what you're doing.
Problems.
Yeah, but it kind of quieted my mind. That constant dark passenger that was screaming in my head, went away because I couldn't go somewhere. I was very limited by the size of the vehicle we were in. Are we currently dealing with a breakdown? Where are we? What city are we in? Is there something close? Are we 50 miles into wilderness? Like, what are we limited by? And so the lack of options really just
your focus
frees.
changes.
Yeah.
You can only focus on like what's in front of you when you're traveling, I feel like, because you don't know everything.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to, this is what I'm doing right now. And I think there's a lot of peace that comes from that because you don't get as overwhelmed, at least for me personally.
Yeah. And the sobriety stuff, it was something that we've realized couldn't have come any sooner. Living this lifestyle, and we say this all the time, this is not for everybody. And a lot of times people will say, hey, anybody can do this. All you got to do is sell everything you own and hit the road. That's just a load. Is not an easy lifestyle by any means, and it does take a long time to really kind of normalize. But
yeah, there's still things.
And it's going to change again and again. But getting away from the constant access to whatever, even friends and family, really is peaceful. Taking away all the options in life and just making it so like, okay, make sure we eat today.
Making yourself uncomfortable makes your mind, heals your mind.
Yeah. It's more about, hey, what are we going to eat today? Okay, cool. Where are we going to be? Okay, cool. What are we doing? Okay, cool. Instead of, all right, I got to get up at 4 a.m. to hit the gym so that I can be, back here at 6 a.m. for coffee and breakfast. Then I got to go to work. Then I got to figure out what I want to eat for lunch. Even though these are very simple, like kind of silly things to even be stressed about, they were things that stressed me
yeah,
out.
because I mean, all the other stuff from your day to day just comes piling in. Like, oh, I gotta call the doctor's office. It's dog food. Like, it's just like, yeah, there are so many stressful things on the road, but it is just a different, more focused type of lifestyle that, for some reason, it's just more peaceful. And I mean, I think that you'll find that a common factor in everybody that you talk to that lives on the road. We certainly have. Everybody that we talk to is like, yeah, it just changes you in a really positive way. And it doesn't mean life is easier. It's just different. And for some reason, this different it's more peaceful.
For those long-term overlanders or those going off-grid for days at a time, Lee and Steph of Grizzly and Bear are about as good of examples and with the most amount of experience as you can find.
Aside from their 2-part episode that was packed, like for real, packed with solid advice, here is a quick overview on washing clothes as an overland traveler.
How do you generally do your laundry on the road?
I do it all.
She does.
I've got a really big bucket. It's a heavy duty bucket. It takes quite a bit of room, but we get a really good use out of it. We can sometimes do the dishes in it. We can store, sometimes even put the fruit and veg in it. It's got handles, it's heavy duty bucket, and I get some water wherever I can, and I hand wash it all. So if I'm close to, let's say if I do it by the river, I will use organic soap, and then I will discard the water away from the river, obviously. If we have access to a proper drain, I'll use one of the pods when the clothes are really dirty. But I really like it. I just hand wash and rinse, and I've got I don't know how you call it, but I've got a really, really good little tool that is a clothesline that is elastic and pegless. So it's like 2 elastic that are rolled together with 2 hooks. I don't really know how to...
Twisted together, like it's it's really cool. So you don't need pegs. It's just it's a clothesline.
That makes sense. Okay.
Or 2 bits of elastic twisted together, and you can just push the clothing through the 2 elastic pieces, and it's awesome.
Brilliant.
It's great for the
it's
socks.
fantastic.
So I don't have pegs anymore. Just have this line, and for the t-shirt, I've got really small coat hangers. So then we don't need to iron also, because then it dries quite neatly.
Yeah, we're not too worried about ironing. And if we do need to do, like, for example, bedding and stuff like that, when we're in and out of cities or towns, you can always find a laundromat. If we've got to do a big load of washing or the bedding, everything.
Or the towels.
Towels and stuff. Then, we'll go out of the way to try and find a laundromat. Sometimes it's pretty tough to find one, but you can always find one. Yeah, another challenge.
It's a mission for the day. Let's say we have to find a place.
And sometimes it can be a full day mission.
Yeah, it has been sometimes.
That's
but I have to say, I really enjoy it. I feel so good
therapeutic.
When all the clothes are clean, I feel really good.
Yeah. So the line, is that something that you guys made, or is that something you purchased?
The line? No, I bought it in France. But I'm sure you can find this on Amazon. And I actually asked my mom to send me another 2. So I would have 2 for myself. And next time I will meet someone that I really like and I love Overlander, I will keep that as a gift for a person that I will meet.
Brilliant. Awesome. I love that.
Yeah, it's a very handy little thing for people overlanding long term, for sure, because it's ultra lightweight, and carrying pegs around, boxes of pegs is a bit of a pain.
Yeah, and you don't have to find a tree to set up the clothesline. We can attach it on the camper itself.
Side of the camper.
Yeah, using the holes that we use to put the legs when we want to remove the camper.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes in there, and it's brilliant.
Oh, it just keeps getting better.
Another hot topic, finances. All the episodes in 2019 that covered finances are awesome to learn from.
And to get those different viewpoints from each individual person that kind of laid out where they're coming from or their thoughts on finances, Here's just one of those with Peter and Carol of Epic Family Road Trip, and they lay it out in a wonderful descriptive way that really resonated with us.
So we always had this thing, we said we want experiences over things. And so we had a lot of things. I had worked hard in business and been fairly successful. And so, like you mentioned right out of the gate, we sold a lot of our things, including our house. And and for the first couple of years, we traded those things for experiences, if you get my meaning. So experiences cost about the same as things. They're not cheaper in many cases. But if you're serious about exchanging experiences or things for experiences, then you're willing to put your money where your mouth is. So we traveled initially on some savings and some of our own money. And we were happy to do that. It was a dream come true, and I would never regret it. Rather than a new roof on our house, some of the experiences saving the whales in New Zealand, that's a no-brainer for us. That's something we'll cherish forever. Or our new couch in our living room, we met a friend of ours on our travels. She was 80 years old, and she said no one ever, in their eulogy, someone isn't going to say, man, I don't know about her, but she really had a nice couch. And she's like, True. Like, at this point in my life, I couldn't care less about the furniture and the things. It's all I have left is the experiences I had when my children were with me. And she really encouraged us to just go ahead and do it. So we spent, some of the monies from savings, but we learned very quickly, or we decided very quickly, once we decided to carry on with this, it went from being a trip to a lifestyle. So for your viewers to say, are we going on a trip which has a definite time and end? So is it 3 months or 8 months or a year? Well, then you can budget for it, right? That's okay. But do you want to do this for an extended period of time? Are you planning on doing this full time? Then you need to be able to make an income on the road. And so we have friends that do photography courses and photography, and they make money that way. Or you can do some online work. I'm a professional speaker, so I'm able to fly from whatever the nearest airport is to do my talk and then come back and then carry on our journey. You just need to have a way of making money on the road, unless you did win the lottery or are personally rich and you just have an endless supply of money, but that's usually not the case. Along with that, you need to find ways to save money. So, camping, there's a lot of free camping available, which we learned. And once we got to the comfort level where we felt secure out there and we had built up our competency around wild camping, that saves a lot of money. Your big expenses are fuel, food, and lodging if you're not free camping, and then Wi-Fi. Now, Wi-Fi can be, we use more than normal because we're uploading videos and so on, and downloading, things that we need in our videos. So just being
all the kids' schoolwork is online.
The kids' schoolwork is all online, so we need a good Wi-Fi connection for at least fairly often. So traveling in foreign countries, that's expensive. Usually at home, it's not that bad. You can get an unlimited plan of some sort. So, with food, we talked already about food and how to preserve it and maintain it and pick your favorite meals and save some money that way. Fuel is what it is. There's nothing you can do about it other than if you want to save some money, you just don't drive as much or stay longer in one place. But we've covered a lot of ground, so it is what it is, and it goes up, it goes down. It's more expensive in other countries and so on, but all part of the fun. And then Wi-Fi, we get creative. We use we'll drive into Starbucks and use theirs, or now Wi-Fi you find quite readily available in most places. Overseas, we have an unlocked iPhone, so we can just buy a SIM card there and then get on their best package. Those are the main costs. But becoming competent and comfortable with free camping was our biggest savings. And we had friends that have been on the road for 3 years. The Holcombs, they're still on the road. Actually, they just shipped over to Europe and are doing some traveling there. But they took us out on our first ever off camping a couple of years ago, like out of park camping, and it was such a wonderful experience in that. And they taught us something new, so we're very thankful for that. And that became our preferred method of camping, and it's completely free using BLM land. And in the U.S. and other countries have something similar to that.
And any budgeting that you do or would recommend on a daily basis that you try and stick with?
I mean, we just have our basic budget spreadsheet, knowing that food, fuel, camping, which gets less and less as we get more competent, and then Wi-Fi. We have those main expenses there, and we just keep track of them. So I just use an app called Expensify, and I just take a picture of every receipt, and then it kind of lets us know where we're at.
That's
but
great.
It's kind of it's nice being on the road, because I mean, I can go through a really quaint town and they have beautiful shops, and you just look. I mean, where are you going to put the stuff? So Pete loves it. I mean, we go to all these amazing stores and stuff, and it's just like, oh, it's looking.
Let's buy this. Oh, wait a minute, where are we going to put it? Oh.
Exactly.
So now whenever we come to those places, he doesn't cringe, like before. He just goes, oh, yeah, sure, we can pull over and take a look at that. But
we'd always leave with something that we may or may not need, but we had the room for it. Now we don't. So it's a check and balance for all of us.
Especially with, the kids, they just, we can go past, big malls and all sorts of things, and they really have no interest looking at it. I mean, other than if it's camera gear that they need or, hiking gadgets, but even that, you're very limited, because it's like, how much do you want to carry?
And most of our hiking gear we bought the first year we set out, and we're using the exact same stuff. We just learned how to maintain it and keep it. If you buy good quality up front, it'll last you for years and years. So we've got really good quality stuff, and we haven't had to replace it. Eating out was expensive on our first year.
So we were more celebrating. I mean, there is those 3 months that was us. We wanted to just spend time together and just celebrate.
I wasn't working at all. It was something we had planned for a long time. We just went on a trip and just enjoyed ourselves. But you probably can't afford to do that indefinitely.
But
I know we can't. But now in terms of food,
the kids don't want to eat out. I mean, they love cooking, and they love that experience around the campfire.
Well, that's thanks to Carol and your cooking, and Daniel's getting good, and the atmosphere and everything. It's the funniest thing when for the first time I heard, "Oh, do we have to eat out?" That was just
that was great.
Yes, that was awesome.
Yes, I have money in my wallet.
Exactly.
It's too expensive. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So thank you for going through those details. That's very helpful.
We couldn't leave this one out. Tim and Kelsey are not only super awesome people and extremely relatable, but they also lay down solid finance info.
Yeah, this is a good topic. We do hear this a lot. We have locals thinking we must be very rich. In some of those times, you have to admit, well, in a way, I guess, for what we can make per day in the U.S., they're probably right. But we are not at all. We have no one helping us. We're making the videos, and we have a few Patreon supporters, and that's fantastic to pay for. I think it adds up to paying for our phone bill each month, which is amazing, right? That's great. But to save for the trip, for me, I was always one of those people in my 20s who could not save anything. It was, if I had a penny in my pocket, I went, oh, you know what I need? Long travel on my truck. And then you know what I need now is those $2,000 shocks, right? Or whatever I had, it was just gone. Then I was working for banks, and I lost everything when they went under. So I was cashing in 401ks, down to zero. So that was 7-8 years ago now, I guess. But that taught me you can always save, always. So, there I was in Arizona digging ditches and with a college degree, digging digits, making cash over, under the table. And you can always find a way to put $20 away and force yourself to live off what's left. So you really, really have to build that discipline. So for us, thankfully, we were both on the same page. So when we started saving for the trip specifically, we went at it really hard. We, if there was a weekend in our vacation days, all working, we're taking days off to work at Overland Expo. We're taking days off to go map trails. So every vacation and every weekend, if there was a way to make money, we did. If there wasn't, no worries. We're going to go mountain biking, camping. You don't want to make your life miserable. But we really went at the saving hard, and we knew that this was just one of those things that you're not going to be able to logically justify. You can't look at your finances and go, I can afford to do nothing for a year and travel in my truck. It's going to be scary. And no matter how much you save, you're going to think you need more than that to leave on your trip. Part of it is maybe that internal fear saying, I don't know if I really want to go. So I definitely need more money. I'll just keep saving, and I'll go when I'm rich, or I'll go when I have a lot of money. You just are going to have to go. And the amount you have is never going to seem like enough. So for us, that was a difficult part. Once you leave on the trip, I think you look at it a bunch of different ways, but I'm going to say two from the people we've met. You're either doing this as a 6-month, a year, a 2-year trip. You're blowing a lot of money. You're going to nice dinners. It's a treat. It's a vacation, right? The way we've looked at it from the moment we quit our jobs is this is a lifestyle for us, and this is what we would like to do. We're going to have to work, I don't know how many months a year. We're going to have to come home and work to keep this going, but that's how we're looking at it. So our biggest cost by far is fuel. If I could snap my fingers and have a diesel put into Goose, I'd absolutely do it. We'd save thousands at this point between the better miles per gallon and diesel being cheaper in all these countries, unlike in the U.S. where diesel's often more expensive. So for us, I think just looking at it as a long-term thing has helped us a ton. We shop at the local markets. We really try and be frugal while we're traveling, but we also don't feel like we're missing out or denying ourselves anything. We will still consider doing the getting a guide and doing the big backpacking trip up the mountain or going to the Galapagos Islands, but we'll also kind of look at it and go, will we be back? Will we go and do that in the future? And if there's a chance we won't, or we're saying, I don't know if I'll ever be back here, we'll go for it. We'll spend that extra $200 on a guide that you're required to have, or whatever the case is. For us, I think that discipline and saving, if anyone's had to lose weight, if anyone's had to do any of those things that require self-discipline and sort of being hard on yourself, then you can save for a trip like this. We've spent far less than we thought we would, I think.
Yeah. I think a practical thing too, once we decided that this trip was something we were going to do, we started selling off everything. And I used, I think, Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist. And I put everything that, something like a candlestick that was worth $10. If someone wants to come and give me $10, cool. And that's a time suck for sure, but it all adds up. And I think that's a big thing that you can do practically.
Yeah, absolutely. And, in little side jobs like we were talking about, I think for the last 10 years or roughly since times were bad and the economy is bad, I've just said yes to everything. And Kelsey does the same. She's found deals on dirt bikes. And, some guy is getting a divorce. He's got 5 dirt bikes and he wants $1,000. Well, each one of them is worth $2. What's going on? So it might be a scam, might not be. Let's find out. And we found some deals like that where we get them home, we rebuild the carburetor, whatever, and we're flipping motorcycles. And you go, gosh, for on the road money, that's 2 months worth of money we just got. We can be on the road 2 months from that little rough weekend of work or whatever it was. So that's kind of how we're able to do it. And we don't know what the future holds. And it's certainly a little scary when you look back and go, I had the health insurance, I had a 401k and all these other cushy sort of support things that keep you attached to your job. You have to let go of all that and say, yeah, there is some risk in all this. There is a risk that my retirement won't be as nice. But for us, the risk that we may not, we've had friends pass, I've had family members have cancer. You don't know that you're going to have this perfect retirement. I had a friend retire a couple of years ago. He's older than me, but within 3 months, he passed on at his house. So his retirement didn't happen. So for us, we kind of weighed the two. And my fear of not doing this trip was greater, I think, than the fear that I might not have as cushy of a retirement someday.
Yeah, all good points. So don't wait for that perfect retirement because that may or may not happen. Live your life today is some good advice. Now, do you have any, like a bigger picture view, a thought on how much should somebody go into a trip with this? Like how much should they save first? And or have you come up with like a daily budget that you try and stick with?
We don't budget too much. We've met a lot of friends back in the States or along the road who have Excel spreadsheets for everything. To me, that seemed a lot like work and what I was doing for work. So to me, we just didn't want to have to do any of that. We spend as little as possible, but we don't worry about a daily budget or how much. If we have a couple of days where we spent too much, especially when friends visit from the United States, they're on a trip for 5 days or 10. They're going to spend immensely more because this is a vacation. They want to sort of live it up and then go back. So when those situations happen, I say, I'm uncomfortable with how much we've spent the last few days. Let's make sure we're camping for the next few weeks. Unless we're really hurting or we feel like we need to be at an Airbnb and have showers and all that, let's camp more. And we'll make up that money in camping. And so I'll roughly estimate, wow, we've camped for a month and a half straight. We haven't even paid for a campsite. This is great. We've killed it. We've sort of made that back, and then we'll feel good and say, next week, let's go to an Airbnb for 3 nights somewhere and just relax and stay put. So we don't really look at a specific daily budget for an amount to leave. The comfort level was, I do not want to come home broke. We've seen some friends, a friend back in the day who worked for Overland Journal. He was doing all the great writing and working at this neat magazine, but he never did any trips. And so he finally said, you know what, I'm doing my own. And he quit, went off into Mexico and kept traveling, and then sold his 4-wheel camper to keep traveling, and then sold the truck. And then he came home with not much. And it was tough. And I saw the toughness that he had to deal with when he got home. So for me, I wanted something in reserve. And for us, we have an old car and an old truck that are being stored at friends' places back in the U.S. That's sort of our safety net. That gives me enough comfort level. If we get home and we need some money, we could sell those and go, okay, we're okay, But I think for us, that's what I required. But we've met people on the road who are traveling with their kids and are like, no, we are traveling. We're playing songs in different towns for money. We're doing this for work. We're doing that. We're babysitting. We're teaching English, and they are shoestring budget doing it. So I think it depends on your comfort level. But for us, that's kind of where we sat in. I think knowing, let's say we spend $15,000 in this year of traveling. If we come home, if we spend every penny of that, or 20, let's say, if we spend every penny of that, are we going to be stressed out and worried and broke? And if that's the case, let's keep saving. So for us, that was kind of the comfort level is, let's say we spend $20,000 or $25,000 over this next year. How are we going to feel when we get home? The ability to come home and work at Expo and the Overland rallies and all these other things is huge for us, because we go home, we work, and without paying a mortgage, you realize the money you make from an event like that, you go, well, this is really going to last us, as opposed to if you had a mortgage and all these other big, a car payment, other costs, that would dematerialize very quickly. So for us, we even taught people on the road. We did 2 different teaching sessions in Guatemala, just, teaching a local guide, all the tricks with winching and, plugging tires and airing down and driving, all that sort of stuff. And we made a few bucks. And so just always looking for opportunities like that have helped.
You can always save, as Tim said. Thank you, Tim and Kelsey of Dirt to Sunrise. And that, Lisa, wraps up episode 100. Did you want to do it together?
Yeah.
Come on in. Episode 100. What are we going to do? 00 or 100?
100.
Okay. That wraps up episode 100. That was kind of okay. So thank you, everyone, for listening. We are absolutely humbled that you take the time. Thank you so much for your support and for listening. Be sure and let us know if you have thoughts for episode 101 and on. Oh, hey, sorry. Wild thought. We need to put this out there. There will not be an episode next week. We know that for sure. We do have the interview in place, and we are more than excited to put it together and get it released to you. But in our current business, next week, we hope you enjoy Valentine's Day. It is one of 3 of our busiest weeks of the year.
We call it our Olympics.
And that ain't no joke. So have a great couple weeks, and we will be back not next Thursday, but the Thursday after, with a pretty awesome episode. And keep those ideas, thoughts, and input coming along.
For good overlanding karma, kindly subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your podcast platform of choice, giving the GHT Overland podcast a little extra love.
Before we go, a big thank you to our Patreon supporters. Your support of the podcast means the world to us. If you would like to help support the show and possibly get a stainless tumbler, t-shirt, or maybe both, take a look at the options by following the Patreon link on our website. You can also send us an email if you'd like with any questions, suggestions, or feedback to GHToverlandpodcast@gmail.com.
GHT is showing gratitude, being humble, and having the tenacity to tackle your dreams.
Thank you, and we will see you in a couple weeks.
Should I drive dead? What kind of things would be said about the kind of man I try to be, kind of man I've been? To give it my all, flexing did I been? Go as far as I could have gone for my family and friends.